Welcome back. It's lecture 4. Now in this lecture we take up the topic of sources. You know, every law has to have a source. Every law comes from some source. When I was practicing, I would often have clients think they know what the law is or tell me what they thought the law is, but they were never able to cite where did that come from. So in the law, what we want to do is look at what are the sources of the law. And the same thing with international law. If we are going to say that international law is law, and we covered that in the very first lecture, then we need to determine where it comes from. Every law has a source. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of people think about this issue beforehand, and generally they've agreed upon 3 different sources of the law. And although this is not an absolute listing or definition, you can rely on these 3 as being the primary sources of international law. So we start with where does international law come from, and we have 2 different authorities for our definition. The first is the United Nations. As we discussed previously, it is the largest, most important international public organization, and it has a judicial branch, the International Court of Justice. Well, the International Court of Justice has provided 3 sources of international law. The United Nations has said that their 3 sources are, first of all, international treaties, customary international law, and finally, general principles of the law as recognized by civilized nations. Now there's another authority on this same issue, and that's called the Restatement of the law. A restatement is a work that is put together by practitioners, by judges, by professors, in which they attempt to describe what the law is. And in the restatement, there is a description of 3 sources of international law. In the restatement, it starts with customary international law. Customary international law is that law that results from the general, consistent, constant practice of the states. We also have international agreements, analogous to our treaties section of the previous description of the sources of the law. And finally, general principles common to the major legal systems of the world. These are another source of international law. So we have 2 very different authorities, the United Nations and the Restatement. However, both would agree essentially on the 3 sources of the law: customary international law, treaties, and general principles of the law. So we will start there.